Hi, I'm Nick Cosentino, and I'm a Principal Software Engineering Manager at Microsoft. In this video, I wanted to talk to you about lessons I've learned from trying to build my SaaS company called BrandGhost. These lessons are based on experiences that I've had either at startups or from trying to do other things in the past for myself that have failed. I think that it's really cool to talk about this kind of stuff because even if you have failures along the way, there's so much that you can learn. The other reason I wanted to talk about this is because I'm practicing what I preach, which is building software. And as an engineering manager these days, I am not writing code at work, but I still love to write code. And I think that it's very important that I do so that I can stay technical. Now, if all of that sounds interesting, just a reminder to subscribe to the channel and check out that pinned comment for my courses on DomeTrain. Before I dive into the 4 lessons that I want to share with you, I just want to give you a little bit of background about BrandGhost and why I'm building it. In my case, this is solving a problem that I currently have. I've been trying to create more and more content on social media, and BrandGhost is my solution for that. I've made videos and I've written articles and stuff in the past on this kind of thing, but I think that if you're trying to learn new technology and you want to practice building things, that if you have something that is going to be very interesting to you, that it's going to make it very easy. It's not going to seem like work, and that means that when you're encountering challenges and things like that, it's going to feel exciting to go solve those problems. If you've ever felt like it's really hard to learn new things and you're forcing yourself to do it, it's probably because you're battling against this kind of thing, right? But when you have something that you're excited about, it feels much easier to go learn. BrandGhost for me has plenty of challenges, but they're all inspiring, they're all exciting, and I'm very motivated to go tackle those challenges. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about in terms of lessons is creating time. And essentially, we all have the same amount of time and we cannot create time out of nothing. And I wanted to talk about this one first because I think that if you're not in a state where you're trying to build your own company or trying to build your own software from scratch, and you're just trying to think about how you might go practice building projects on the side, right? Maybe you're a brand new developer and you keep hearing this advice that you should go build things. The reality is, yes, we can't just make more time out of nothing. So if you're feeling strapped for time and you're going, I don't have time to go build these projects. I'm already, you could be working a full-time job. You could be in school. You could be doing both. You could have a family. There's a million things that are going to be occupying your time, of course. It was the same situation for me. And in my case, it's a full-time job. It's my wife. It's our animals. I'm trying to make sure that I'm creating content online. I'm trying to create courses online. And then I went, okay, I'm running out of time to be able to do any of these other things. I basically could not create more time. When I wanted to start coding more things, I was at my limits. I basically had to give something up. So for me, it was a matter of trying to prioritize. And that's what I wanted to talk about for this lesson, right? Is trying to figure out at this point in your life, in your current stage, what things do you value the most? Because you only have so much time to dedicate towards things. It's okay if these things change over time, right? I've heard people describe this as seasonal. So it might be totally okay to prioritize something more highly than you usually would because it is a seasonal thing, because it is going to be effective for you and the most beneficial thing right now. For example, if you are going through school right now, right? If you have a heavy course load, you're studying for your exams and things like that, and you're saying, well, I want to make sure that I can go build some side projects and carve out more time for that, you might have to make a hard decision and say, look, it probably isn't in my best interest to reduce my time studying, reduce my time on my school load. You probably should be investing the time into that for right now. So if you want to go building side projects, is there something else that you can carve time out of? I don't recommend removing time from your friends and family. I think that's very important, but I think that you're going to have to look at your other hobbies, extracurricular activities, and see where you can start to get some time back if you prioritize building things more than that. I wanted to bring this up because it's something that we all encounter. Like I said, we all have the same number of hours in a day, but I think it comes down to priorities, and you do have to be honest with yourself. If you are saying, I want to go spend time building things, in my case, I want to start building BrandGhost and take it more seriously, make it a real thing, I need to get the time from somewhere. It's not coming from my work, right? I need to be able to maintain my job. My goal is not to just have a huge valuation on something and then get rid of it. BrandGhost is something I'm building because it's exciting for me and it's helpful for me. And if I can help other people with it, that's awesome. It's not coming from my job. I need to make sure that I'm spending time with my wife, right? That's important as well. For me, I ended up having to remove some amount of content creation. Blog writing was one of the most time-consuming parts of my content creation. I put that on hold. It's been on hold for months now, almost 6 or more months at this point. That went away, and I actually reduced my time going to the gym. I was someone that would go to the gym 6 to 7 days a week, and I said, okay, at this point in my life, I've reached a lot of the goals that I had at the gym. I'm not going to stop entirely, but I will reduce that time, and that way I have more time for this. The next thing that I want to talk about is user feedback, and I think that this is a super important topic, and not a lot of software engineers get exposure to this kind of thing in their careers. And that could look wildly different for some people. You might work at a place where, in the very beginning, you were kind of getting user feedback and working with customers. Especially if you are a solo dev and you have to be responsible for everything, this is of course going to ring true to you. But some people will go through their careers and they might be in a position where they have a product manager, product owner, and they're acting as the user proxy, and they're kind of doing this job for you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this so that you have some understanding in terms of how I navigate this kind of thing with a little bit of experience from being at startups and from trying to do my own stuff before. First of all, it's really important that you are listening to users. Like, user feedback is absolutely critical because you might have a great idea, so you think, but if it's not resonating with your users and you're not listening to what their challenges are, then it's going to be really hard to make sure that you're delivering value to them. We've even been through this with BrandGhost, right? So for me, I saw value in this. I wanted to start creating it for myself. And when I started working with my partners on this, they literally had to ask, like, does anyone else have this problem, right? They want to believe me, but they need to make sure that we can hear from other people the user feedback. Like, yes, I also have this problem. Yes, these are the top priorities for me. Here are these other challenges I have. We need to hear from users. If you're not doing that, you may just be wasting time hoping that you're going to create something, put all this effort into, and just hope that people want it. But you can be proactive about it and try listening to the feedback that's coming in. And feedback can come in other ways too, right? So in terms of people using your software, so now they're trying it out, what are they requesting? Are there bugs, right? Are you going to listen to when people are filing bugs, making sure that you can fix them promptly, show them that you really care? We've already had feedback for our platform. Not that there's any bugs ever in the software that I write, but we've had feedback where people have said, hey, it was really awesome to see just how fast the team responds. And to me, that means a lot. We're very proud about what we make, and we want to make sure that people have a good experience. So I think it's critical that you're listening to users. But there is one catch here, and that catch is if you're following user feedback blindly. So this might sound kind of funny based on everything I just said, but if you have users giving you feedback and they're doing things like giving you solutions, right? They're giving you solutions and you say, that makes sense, good solution, I'm going to go build it. If you keep repeating that for the users that you have, what ends up happening is that you create a very disjoint product or service. And you might get lucky and that doesn't happen, but if you think about it, if you have individual people telling you solutions for things on the outside of your business and the product that you're building, they're not going to have all the perspective that you should have in your product or service offering. I think it's really important, and it's actually great if someone's giving you a solution, right? It's great that they're doing that, but I do think it's really important that you go back and ask them what their goals are and what challenges they're having. That's important for you to understand. And they've given you a solution, and it's a solution. It doesn't mean that it's the best solution, and you need to go back to the drawing board and say, based on what I'm hearing, the goals that my customers have, the biggest challenges they're having, is this a viable solution, or can and should I come up with something else? This way you think about things holistically and you're not operating with blinders on and just kind of super hyper focused on individual things one at a time. This will really help you create a cohesive product. The next lesson I want to talk about is testing. And if you're watching this YouTube video and you've seen my other YouTube videos where I talk about testing, I think software testing is incredibly important. It's one of the things that I love to talk about. I know it's kind of weird because not everyone likes testing and probably many people think it's boring, but I've seen the benefits of it. I've seen us transform our teams that I've worked in to make sure that we have good testing, that we feel confident in our code. So I do love talking about testing because I think it's critical. However, I don't think that it's critical all of the time. I've made live streams about this, I've written newsletter articles about this, and I've vlogged about it as well. And I'm going to say it in this video too because I think that it's really important. I think software testing is very important in your development, but I don't think that every single thing you do at every stage you're operating at requires tests. In our example with BrandGhost, we were doing so much iteration so fast that in order for us to make sure we had a lot of test coverage, it would be slowing us down tremendously. And I realize that that might sound kind of scary. You might be saying, Nick, how could you ever put code up and run it on the internet if you don't have it tested and you're not confident? But that's the difference. I am confident in what I'm building. So the trade-off, in order for me to go write the test and have the testing infrastructure on this code that I might be blowing away completely the next day, is not really there. What we were finding as we were building stuff is that we can move very fast at the stage we were at without the tests. And that's because with no users, we can keep trying things, getting it to run and going, okay, seems good. Let's keep going. Oh, let's tear that down. Thankfully, we didn't go write tons of tests on it and waste more time, and keep experimenting. As users are coming on board, we can do this less and less. Now, for me, I'm writing a lot of the backend in ASP.NET Core. There are experimental features that only I can see because I'm controlling the entire backend. So I will set some of these up for myself and I would experiment with them. And the way that I have that working is that it's impossible to interfere with other people. So I have a high degree of confidence that I'm only going to potentially mess up myself and the content that I'm posting. But that starts to not be the case. And as things get more complicated and we have more users on, my confidence level starts dropping very fast. And for us, we reach a point, and we have reached this point, where we started saying, look, it's not okay to not test anymore. We literally reached this point where we said, we do not have confidence. We need to slow down to speed up. So slow down so we can get the testing infrastructure in place, write those tests so that we are able to get back to having that agility. We reached the point where we felt the pain of not having tests and we said, aha, okay, here it is. Let's make sure we're writing those now. And that way we have confidence and we can keep iterating fast. And what ends up happening is that we notice that there are core parts of the code that are not changing anymore, right? They're stabilizing. So we might still have experimental features and things that are kind of on the fringe of the application. And there still might be big parts of the application that we do rewrite. But there are these core parts of the application that are really forming up. So for example, in our platform, we have a scheduling system and we have authentication and we have these repository patterns and our database schema. Like some of these things at this point haven't changed or they've had small iterations on them for like 6 months now. So it's probably important for me to make sure that stuff is rock solid. It's a critical part of what we're doing. I want to make sure that if I do need to experiment or try something, that I have the tools to do it locally and that I can try it, test it before I push it. I wanted to talk about this because I think it's important to keep moving quickly, but you will reach a point where you start saying, look, I don't have confidence, and if we want to keep moving quickly, we need to do something about that. For us, it's adding different types of tests over the key parts of our business logic. Finally, the last thing I want to talk about, and no, I did not coin this or invent it, but I am leveraging this insight from Y Combinator, and it's do things that don't scale. And what we mean by do things that don't scale is kind of interesting, right? Because if you think about software engineers in particular, we have a bad habit of like basically over-architecting and trying to make things that scale, to the moon and back because we're so used to building software systems that we want to make sure will scale. But there's a difference here. When you are writing software systems to be scalable, it's at a point in time for us where we have not scaled yet. You're starting to make a trade-off, and you've probably heard people talk about this with microservices versus monoliths as one example, right? If you jump into microservices right away, someone will say, well, maybe that's a bad idea because if you have no users and you're immediately introducing a lot of complexity with microservices, you might find that it's very difficult to move forward at a fast pace. That's because you have not scaled yet. And of course, it's really difficult to reach a ton of scale if you're not scalable. So there is this sort of catch-22, this balance that you have to do. But for us, we do things that don't scale because we have not scaled yet. What that looks like for us is, say, for example, onboarding a user to our platform. How would that look? In the very scalable way, we would have, a completely automated workflow. It would do everything that the user needs. We could import content for them to post. It's a social media integration application. So we could do all of that for them, right? And we could spend all of the time trying to make that perfect. But for us, the thing that doesn't scale is that I can go message someone and I can say, hey, I know you're onboarding. Can I help you get your content imported? I can literally go to your social media, and if you let me know what kind of content you want from your social media, I'll go grab it for you. I'll go do all the work. I'll go literally put it directly into the database for you. That does not scale. But what's really cool about that is that I can start to build relationships with the people using the product. They can feel comfortable talking to me about their challenges, either in their content creation or using our product. So I'm nurturing this relationship and learning from them and giving them a lot of value. At the same time, they're giving us a ton of value because we're getting to learn from them. Now, at some point, this does stop scaling. But I also think at that point, we're in a really good spot because we are starting to scale. There will be a point in time where being able to do this kind of thing, like hand-holding people to make sure that they can onboard effectively, is unscalable. But that's okay. If we start paying attention to when that starts to become unscalable, and we're making sure that we are paying attention and trying to build the scalability into our systems, we should be in a good spot. I thought this was really important to talk about because it's a living, real example of these situations where we talk about things like premature optimization, and that could look so many different ways in software engineering. I already mentioned like the microservices thing. You could be, say, writing code and going, hey, like I need to make sure that I can get the latency down to like, 1 millisecond, or I need to make sure I can optimize for throughput of like 10 million requests per second. But do you? Do you really need to be doing that, or are you just doing it because it's interesting? Right? For us, we need to make sure that we can focus on just enough and that we can put our energy potentially into these other things that aren't really scalable because they'll offer so much more value for us right now. Those are the 4 lessons that I wanted to talk about from building BrandGhost so far, but we're still early in the journey, and I'm sure there's going to be many more lessons to come. So I hope you thought that was interesting, and I'll see you next time.